Hey guys, another week, another game dev vlog, and this week has been, well, it's been alright, I guess. I've gotten a little bit of stuff done. I primarily worked on some stuff to do with Everybody at Its Universe. Well, I've worked on some other stuff throughout the week, and there was an Everybody at Its meeting last night, but the biggest thing was Everybody at Its Universe, and what I did on there was some work to do with the message handling. Basically, the way that the server and client communicate with each other. Now, in the previous test last month, I had a simple system that was much like Player.io uses, and it allows you to grab a parameter from any position in the message of a certain type, and if it's not the correct type, it'll throw an exception. And it definitely works. It's a good, flexible system. The thing is, if you want to make sure that things are the correct type, you have to do a little extra work. And what I wanted is a simple system to automate that, because for most messages sent and received by either side, I want a specific number of entries and I want a specific set of types. There's a few different ways of going about this. There's one member of the Literal Studios Discord, goes by Sir Josh. He has made some suggestions, and he's actually built his own system for handling stuff like that, and it's a very comprehensive system. It uses different class types to represent a message type, and you use the annotations, was that what it's called? Or maybe that was the Java term. But it uses those bracketed attributes before functions and variables to represent something that must be provided by the message. There's a lot of stuff he has with deserializing messages into instances of those classes, and it's all a very interesting system, and it definitely seems like a pretty solid way of doing it. But there are actually a few reasons why I don't think it's the perfect fit for what I need to be able to do here. The first reason is because I need something that's pretty much identical on both the C# side of things and the JavaScript side of things. And that system wouldn't be able to be like that in JavaScript, so it'd have to be something completely different, and that's not really what I want. The other reason is I'm not sure I want to define a class for each message type. I know those wouldn't necessarily mean a bunch of different files, but still having a bunch of different class definitions seems a little overkill for the kind of code that I expect to be making with this. I really think it's a better fit to use just a function call to define a message type, passing in a specific set of entries that I want to receive. The exact way I want to go about that, I'm not sure. I have one implementation right now, and it seems to be working, and I have a few ideas on ways to refine it, but overall the current system that I'm using can be done identically on both C# and JavaScript, and really any other language that it might eventually be ported to. Now, there is one other thing that I've been thinking about to do with the message sending, and that is about whether or not to send entry types along with the actual value in the serialized data. And to explain what I mean by that, I need to describe a bit more about what the serialization is. Basically, since we're sending a bunch of different data as a message to the server or to the client, that means compacting it down into one byte array that we can transmit either way. And what that means is we need some way of encoding any type of value into that set of numbers, and depending on how you want to go about decoding the value, you may want to include values that represent separation between the different types, or to be able to define what follows it. So, as an example, let's say you have a message that contains an integer and a string. Now, ignoring any optimizations with 7-bit encoding for integers, an integer is generally 32 bits. That means 4 bytes. So we can go ahead and encode that into our serialized data. Now, a string. Well, how do we define a string? Well, we need to define the length of the string and then the characters themselves. Now, that length is usually going to be another integer, so let's just say 4 bytes right there, and then we have however many is defined in that one integer bytes that represent the characters in that string. So, overall, pretty simple there. But the thing is, to be able to read that, well, the server or client or whatever is the opposite side needs to be able to know what is where in that message. Now, if we are absolutely sure that they are going to be the same, then the server can just grab an integer from that first 4 bytes and then grab the next 4 bytes representing the length of the string and grab the rest of those bytes representing the string itself. And that works fine. That keeps everything really small. But what if there's an inconsistency? How do you detect that with a system like that? Well, the thing is, there's no way for it to know explicitly that it's reading the wrong value. You're going to have to be able to diagnose it from other weird side effects, like strange number values or weird characters in a string. things can go really weird when you don't have type checking involved. And how you'd combat that is by including a byte before each value that represents what type of value is going to be. So in that example, we would have two different bytes now. So we'd have the first one being a byte that represents an integer. Let's just say it's a 1. And then we have the 4 bytes that represent that number. And then we have another byte that represents a string value. Let's say it's 2. And then we have the 4 bytes for the length of the string and then the string itself. And now the side receiving the message can easily tell what is where in that message. But there is a cost to that, and that is more bandwidth usage. But it makes debugging so much easier, and it could really save there. But anyway, what I'm basically saying is I think I will be sending type parameters just for the sake of making things a whole lot easier to work with. We don't want those kind of strange issues creeping up and having to try to diagnose those, because I've had more than a few times where I've been working on like an everybody at its bot or Blockworks, where there are some inconsistencies between the server and client, and you don't realize it until you get an error that says that it expected a different type than was actually in the message. I think I'm going to be keeping that kind of style. So anyway, I think that's enough of a technical rant for now. I guess that is going to have to be it for today. So as always, I do want to thank my contributors over on Patreon, especially for another month. It's a huge help. And if you want to check out my Patreon page for yourself, the link is down in the description below. But yeah, I'll see you around. Goodbye.